Hi, I'm Jean Nolte, editor at Fons Porter.
And I'm Colleen Tauke. I'm the sewing specialist for Fons Porter. In this tutorial, we're going to show you the construction of Zoe's Playday.
To get the pattern for this quilt, go to shopfonsandporter.com/quiltingquickly. So this is a fun little baby quilt, and the blocks are a little different. They're kind of wonky or uneven 9-patch blocks, and you actually cut them 9 at a time. So a lot of 9s in this quilt. So the first thing we're going to do is start with 10-inch squares, and you'll need 27 10-inch squares in assorted prints for this quilt. So we're going to pick 9 different fabrics, make sure they're different, no two alike, and we're going to stack them all up so the corners are all even, so they're
A perfect stack.
all right. So now we're going to cut the pieces to make this block.
This is not a traditional block, so hold on, here we go. We're going to cut through all 9 layers.
Okay, so I'm going to just make a random cut. I've got an angle. It's closer to the edge here than it is here. I'm going to hold that ruler down and cut through all 9 layers.
Now, there aren't an exact spot for the ruler. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 inches. You're going to want to create different angles as you cut. That's what is going to create that crazy quilt block look to it.
Kind of wonky. Okay, so now I'm going to lay the ruler on here again. Make sure there's an inch or 2 in between there.
From your last cut.
And at least an inch or 2 over here.
From that corner.
I'm going to do the same thing, cut through all of those layers.
This is the spot where you're going to want to make sure that you have a really sharp rotary blade. We tend to delay changing out those blades. This is the time you're going to want to start with a brand new blade.
Yeah, that'd be great. So now I have a rotating mat, so we're just going to turn it a quarter of a turn. If you don't have a rotating mat, it's nice if you have a littler mat, you can turn the whole mat.
Now realize this has already been cut, so we've got 3 sections, and we're putting them back together, pretending it's all one.
I'm checking to see. It looks like there's, oh, yeah, just a
Yep,
thread left there.
tiny thread.
Holding them together. Okay, you do want to check to make sure they're cut all the way through. Now I'm going to do the same thing again. Doesn't have to be the exact same angle, but the same idea.
The first time I made one of these blocks, I kept thinking, but shouldn't all the angles be exactly alike? And then I realized, no, the fun is you don't have to worry about that. And usually when we're making a block, we're worrying about cutting every little tiny piece so precise. You get to breathe and relax in this quilt.
All right, so now we've cut that into a 9-patch.
9 pieces.
I'm going to move this just out of the way a little
Move
bit.
them out just so you can see where the breaks are here.
Okay, so you have 9 piles.
Now, if I were to create this as a block, it would go back all as one color.
That wouldn't be
So
good.
we need to do something else. There's one more step. We're leaving the first stack
So
alone.
that's stack number 1. It just moves over.
Stack number 2, take the very top fabric, rotate it to the bottom.
All right,
Oh, look at
it's gonna
those
come
cute
over
little
here.
sock monkeys come out. Stack number 3, we're going to take the top 2 fabrics, move it to the bottom.
Okay.
Now this is, again, a place where you're going to want to keep all of your stacks aligned nice and neat.
Yep.
Sometimes people will use
Okay,
a brand new clean pizza box, which you might buy from your local establishment.
There you go. So that was
Keep everything
pile
to
number 4. So
4.
3 went to the bottom.
4.
So 4 to the bottom on stack number 5.
And you probably
5 to the
catching
bottom
what we're
here
doing
on
We're
stack
just
number 6.
rotating one more each time to the bottom
Okay.
until we get all the way down. There's some pink dots that look like little Cheerios.
And so all but
this
one go to the bottom.
There we go. So
Okay.
this way, all 9 fabrics are represented.
So what we're going to do now, I'm going to just use this.
Okay, it's going to use this as my
We're gonna take-
transportation tray.
Yep. We'll take 1 off of each of the stacks here.
See how she's carefully moving them and still in that same
I'm
sequence.
not moving this pile at all. The whole
Sequence stays together.
the whole bunch of them. No, we want to keep that all right there. You might want to use pieces of cardboard or paper or something and
layer between.
make the groups of blocks if you can't leave this all in one place
When
until
I was
you're
working
done.
on this, as I was making the sample, I would sit down with enough time that I knew I could make one whole block. So I took off one layer. I left everything else together. So the next time I sat down, I knew I was ready to go to a new block.
Okay, and you can see if you look at that block and you look at this block how they're going to be different. Look at the stripes here, the stripes there. The fabrics are in different places in each block.
And if you're not good at scrambling things up and doing things a little crazy, this is one that's going to force you to do that.
Yeah.
No.
All right, so you're going to sew the first row together.
We're going to take just the pieces off the very top row, and we're going to put them together. So I'll show you here. 1, 2, 3. Those are the ones I'm going to sew together. Now, keeping them in the same order, I take them right to everything together. It's one place where you're going to have to concentrate.
Yep. Got to keep your wits about you a little bit.
The fun is that
But it's just the same thing as a regular even 9-patch. You sew it into rows, and then you'll sew the rows together.
Right.
No different, except, now those don't line up perfectly because they got points on them, so you just sort of center them so you got about the same amount sticking out on the top and the bottom.
Remember, when we normally piece things, we're including a seam allowance. In this one, where we've cut the entire block up, the seam allowances are now coming out of that 10-inch block.
Right.
So,
So there's your first row done.
Okay.
All right, now that's pretty even. If you find that this isn't even, you can kind of straighten it up if you need to.
Sometimes you will get just a little bit of a stair step, that's okay. You can come in with your ruler and make a straight line. Don't worry about how much you're trimming off, it's okay. There's a built-in insurance policy at the end of this block.
Now you're doing something different than normal here.
Exactly. This is a little bit different because we're going to have a lot of intersections that are kind of thick. This is something I don't normally do, but I found this worked really good for this block because I tried it with seam allowances pressed in one direction. I didn't like the outcome. Right. So I came in and we're going to press these seam allowances open. Right. And I went ahead and finger pressed them first, very gently. You don't want to distort the block.
That makes my job easier.
But yep, makes it really easy for you to
so
create.
you sew the next row, and I'm going to go ahead and press these for real.
It's just kind of like a little production line here. We're creating.
Okay, so I've got that. And like I say, this one does line up pretty well, but if it didn't, if it's not straight, you can put a ruler along there and just trim off that little bit to straighten it up, because then it'll make it easier to put the rows together.
And each one of your blocks is going to be unique. It scrambles them up nicely, and no two blocks are going to be exactly alike.
To make this go a little quicker, I'm going to just put one out here that's already
just repeating that same process over and over, opening up seam allowances and creating rows.
This one is not pressed yet, so I'm going to need to.
Again, pressing is always
a little steam on that one.
Keeps things nice and flat, makes our work in the end a lot more manageable.
And I like to turn it over.
Make sure you've got that seam allowance pressed all the way open.
Be
very gentle with it. Don't want to distort it too much.
And just touch it from the right side. That really flattens it out. Okay, so now we're ready to sew the rows together, and these have already been trimmed up, so they are straight.
And you will notice that you do have them in the right angle because the two cuts, the first cuts were kind of in an angle, creates a wedge down the front, so you know you have those correct. Now we're going to create the block.
And again, if they don't line up perfectly, you just sort of leave the same amount sticking off at each end so they're centered, because once we get these rows sewn together, we're going to trim it to the size that it needs to be for the quilt. We're making them oversized so they don't have to be perfect. So if the edges don't line up, don't worry about it. All right. So we're going to finger press these seams as well.
Right. And you're going to see here why we say that, because the seam allowances are actually coming out of that entire block, where it's going to be off just a little bit.
Okay, so once she gets that done.
This is a great way to, a lot of times we find, especially kids' prints, an entire line, and they're all great prints, and we don't know, well, I want to use 7 or 8, maybe 9. This would be perfect for a fabric line where there's a lot of pieces you want to use. And you will see the seam allowances cannot match up. They're going to be off because of the way that's cut.
So I'm going to press this. We're first going to just finger press them a little bit to get it started.
Yep. Finger pressing here is kind of it helps just
get that
iron
when
to
you're
nudge
pressing
the seam
seams
less.
open, it's just not something we do all the time, but in this case, it's just going to make the blocks lie flat because there's just so many intersections. So I'm going to
And because they aren't going to nest, you're not going to get opposing seams. If we open them up, it just reduces the bulk overall.
give that a little bit, and then get
You
this
can
one.
go through production, making it, all the blocks at once, or like I said, one layer at a time. Maybe it'll take you a week or so sitting down after work or in the evenings to put your blocks together. But as we know, a lot of love goes into making baby quilts.
All right. Okay, so again, I like to press it from the right side too. Now I need that rotating mat back.
We're going to show you how we can use that mat to our advantage one more time.
It's time to trim this block to 8.5 inches. So I am using this square ruler, which is 9.5 inches because my other ruler is only 8 inches wide and that just won't work. So I'm going to put this on here so I'm sure that the 8.5 inch line along the side and the bottom are both within the block. Doesn't really matter.
Again, there's no sweet spot in the middle to line up. We're just trimming the blocks to 8.5 inches.
Just so where it's going to be 8.5 inches when we're done. So I'm going to trim across the side.
Oops.
That one is not, you know what, that's just not working. I'm going to just turn my mat.
Get the angle. A lot of us have purchased the rotating mats over the years and then put it away and forgotten all about it. Well, guess what? Pull it out. This is where it's going to work to your advantage.
So now I'm going to turn it again. And this time I have two that are straight. So I'm going to put the 8.5 inch line.
Oh, I want to rotate your ruler so you...
Hey, yes, I am.
Always work with that 1 by 1 in the top right-hand corner. Then you know that you're 8.5 by 8.5.
So I have 8.5 inches along that side and 8.5 inches along that side.
We're always wanting to cut, pushing away from ourselves, and then across the top if you can.
Trim that off. I'm just going to turn
If it's more comfortable, rotating mat makes it perfect.
It just wasn't working for me.
That's okay. So you got to get the angle just right.
So we get that 8.5, 8.5, 8.5.
It's all about staying safe where we're cutting because those rotary blades,
there.
Especially if you just change that rotary blade to cut through all 9 layers, it's really sharp.
So there we have another block. You see, it's the same fabrics, but they look different because they're rearranged. So now, because you make these 9 at a time, you'll have enough pieces cut for 27 blocks, but the quilt only uses 24. So you can put those 3 on the back, use them for another project, or don't even sew them together, but you have to cut them 9 at a time, so you will have 27.
Arrange the blocks. You're going to get that crazy quilt look. The colors pop throughout the quilt. Thanks for joining us today.
To watch more of our videos, go to video.fonsporter.com.